What's going on, everybody? Super excited to be here with two legends from the Hedera ecosystem. We have Brady and Ashe. Guys, so good to be able to have this conversation, talk about what's happening inside of Hedera and what you two have been up to. How you doing today?
Doing awesome. Thanks.
I
Thanks
want to
for
see how
inviting us
polite
on.
both of these guys were. They're like, you sound good. It's like, all right, who's going to talk first? Who's going to talk first?
Yeah, no, I'm doing good, man. Doing great. It's been an interesting year. A lot to talk about for sure. Excited to share.
Love it. How about yourself, Brady? How you doing?
Yeah, doing well also. Definitely an interesting year. Excited to be on the builder side of things, a little bit different than in the past when I was working with Ashe.
When you were working with Ashe, we're going to get into that. I mean, it's not part of the script, but you know how this goes. What script, right? We got to make sure people actually know who you guys are, because we're definitely going to be going into what's going on as far as the Hedera's DeFi ecosystems and projects, and we're going to be, highlighting Bonzo specifically here, because I appreciate you, Brady. I've made some good money over there. It's been healthy. This is the best way for me to say it. But you know what? Let's kind of kick things off and try to get a little bit of an understanding of who you guys are and what it is that you do inside of this space. We'll kick it off with you, Ashe.
Yeah, sure. So, name's Ashe Oro. I've been in crypto for a long time. Been in Hedera since 2021. I joined probably at the pico top of the last bull market, when everybody couldn't get enough of NFTs, and I got brought in to help build out the Hedera ecosystem for NFTs specifically. Back then, it was NFTs, it was gaming, metaverse was a big thing back then. So I got brought in as a developer advocate slash product manager. Sorry, my cat Noodles. I'm sure he's going to pop up here in a second, but and I worked over at the time it was Hedera, then it was Swirlds Labs, and now it's Hashgraph. But think of it as the engineering and product labs arm of the whole Hedera, ecosystem as far as organizations go. And so I worked on various open source tooling, like mintbar.xyz, which was the first permissionless NFT minter on Hedera. Brady came up with the name, so thanks again, Brady. I think that that app should still be live, mintbar.xyz, as well as other more complicated, more powerful open source tooling, Mintbox and Claimbox and all sorts of stuff. Focused on consumer engagement during the 2020 year 2023. And then started in 2024, started to really see the future of the agentic internet and wanted to help position Hedera to be able to be a front runner in that narrative, right? And so I started to build the Hedera AI agent kit back in late 2024, early this year, and since then have moved over to the foundation, the Hedera Foundation, where I help lead ecosystem growth in the verticals of AI and DePIN specifically. That's where I'm focused on, but then give a helping hand wherever I can, because there's so many things that are important: DeFi, stable coins, bridges, making sure that our liquidity is up to expectations, on ramps, off ramps, and making sure that we have a healthy ecosystem to support a decentralized financial future.
Very cool. Now, Brady, moving over to you, because I think Ashe just touched on a few things that you kind of care a lot about in the space. Tell everybody about what you do here.
Yeah, I heard liquidity in there somewhere. Yeah, so my name is Brady Gentile. I'm the co-founder and CEO at Bonzo Finance Labs. We are a development shop that contributes to the open source development of the Bonzo Finance protocol. It's an Aave-based lending protocol that has been adapted to Hedera's EVM and token service. Bonzo Finance is the liquidity layer of Hedera. So while we started with lending and borrowing, as a core functionality that helped fill a gap for Hedera's DeFi ecosystem. We are helping expand functionality on the development front by introducing vaults. And vaults are automated yield strategies that allow people to deposit liquidity into a vault, and it gets routed across the ecosystem and automatically managed. And then prior to Bonzo Finance Labs, as mentioned before, I was working with Ashe over at the Hashgraph organization, and Hedera before that. So, I've been part of the Hedera ecosystem, I think the last seven years now, 6 or 7 years. And then last year was when I departed and started building for the ecosystem at Bonzo Finance Labs. So it's been a journey for sure.
Very cool. So, I mean, even if you guys don't work hand in hand every single day, everything you two do kind of impacts one another's, kind of little sphere, I guess you can say, which is actually really, really cool. Now, I would love to hear from you, Ash, in regards to some of the things that have been working, I guess you can say, over the last year or so, this first half of 2025. What would you say are some of the big highlights for Hedera this year? Maybe some of the milestones you guys accomplished and achieved over this short period of time. I mean, we're talking about, never mind. It's September. We're super late in the year already.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the obvious things that our community would see as improvements or as milestones is we've got HBAR supported on more exchanges. Kraken just announced support, Robinhood announced support, and we continue to try to network with those types of teams. Again, in the effort of trying to create better on-off ramps for our tokens, better liquidity for our ecosystem. So, bridges are another thing. Brady was mentioning before the show started that have typically been frictions or trouble points for Hedera. We're talking to bridges. We've got layer 0 bridging infrastructure already live on Hedera. We've got bridges using that layer 0 infrastructure like ETA Bridge and others. We've got Axelar coming online. We've got bridges using that infrastructure as well. So the doors to get capital into Hedera are being knocked down. Let's say that, right? It's easier than ever, and it's going to continue to get easier over the rest of the year to be able to have your capital is free to move about the cabin, right? And it hasn't necessarily been that way for Hedera, but it is now. And this is something that we've wanted to do for a while. And with Charles's leadership coming over as the president from Hedera, now the CEO of the foundation, we've really been empowered to make a lot quicker action than what the foundation has historically been able to do. And we're really proud of that. The other thing that we've seen is this intersection of AI and Web3. And a lot of people talk about this. And back earlier this year, at the beginning of this year in Q1, it was all about virtuals and Eliza OS. And let's call that Gen 1 of AI Web3. It was really just a bunch of slot bots, but you got to start somewhere, right? And now that has moved in 2 directions. One, and we were very early on this. One, the whole prove your AI is trustworthy type of narrative, right? The provenance, data provenance, and verifiable compute, and all of this stuff. This is a great use case for Web3, for DLTs, especially for Hedera. And we have very strong teams and more coming online that are attacking this use case, trying to build systems. The one that people have heard of is Equity Lab, but trying to build systems that help us identify when AI is not trustworthy or how to prove that it is trustworthy, right? When you ask AI something and you get that inference response back, we want to make sure that we can build trust around that system. And we've got teams doing that on Hedera. We've got the Equity Lab team. I'll just mention them again. I've worked with them several times through the past year and a half. Visited their office in San Francisco, and they have ongoing POCs. This is all public information. They've got ongoing POCs and partnerships with NVIDIA and Dell and other teams. And yeah, it's just really exciting to think that Hedera can be the trust layer for AI. that's one of our and my North Stars is Hedera, the trust layer for AI. On the other side, on the more degen side, retail side, right, maybe more relevant to the audience here, is using AI as a UX layer, right? What can we expose with natural language, right? What does blockchain and DLTs like Hedera offer that it might be a little bit too cumbersome or complicated for the average user to uncover? Think of historical data, right? Think of identifying, previous buys or sells from your account and the price for those assets that you bought and sell to identify, what your return has been without
Mm.
having to hope for somebody to build a dashboard that you can use. What if you could just ask this stuff in natural language? And this UX layer is really being rewritten from, back in the day, it was like command line, right? And then the graphical user interface was created. And this is what we've known for a long time. Sure, it's taken iterations. Now we have mobile, right? But it was my theory that, and this is not unique to me, but back in Q1 2024, I felt that we're entering this evolution of more and more human to computer interface being in natural language. And so I started working on projects to help break those barriers and create that natural language abstraction layer, if you will, to Hedera, so that any user can use their natural language, be it English or not, who cares, right? And ask questions about their wallet, ask questions to manage their wallet. And now we're seeing a bunch of these teams and apps popping up all over the place. Like maybe even some of my technical friends, engineering friends, they don't know how to go to Bonzo, Brady, and look at what are the US dollar yields and how do I even stake to this vault? And like in natural language, you could do that very simply. You just ask it like, hey, what are the best USDC, vaults on Hedera? Oh, here they are. Oh yeah, okay, that one's great, 22%, whatever. I want to stake to that one. There you go. Right. It reduces the barrier to entry. And that's what I'm really excited about.
I have a
Wow.
theory on that also. You mentioned sort of that interface that you have between you, the AI agent, and then various protocols, websites, applications, platforms. We're starting to see, like you said, natural language being used as that interface. I think, and this is sort of from like Lovable and some of these like low code platforms, but I think what will end up happening is not only will it be able to reply to you, your agent will reply to you with like information that you are requesting, but it'll also dynamically generate the UI in a way that perfectly fits whatever it is that you want. So like the browser kind of goes away and then you end up with this dynamically generated interface. And maybe it's, your agent, when you send it out to go find something, it's talking to the agents of other businesses. So like maybe Bonzo has an agent and your agent goes and it says, hey, Bonzo, like I'm on a search right now for all the USDC yields across Hedera. Let me know like what I can do. And my agent would tell, or Bonzo's agent would tell your agent, hey, this is the info. And oh, by the way, when you render it for the user, there's these rules that you have to do. And then that gets incorporated into like whatever you see as this like dynamic information portal that your agent creates. I think like Comet Browser is going to be like the first instance of that.
Yeah, and it can all be done
I think
in real time. That the comment that you popped up from DFB, I think that was it. Like we need a dashboard for this. The great thing is that we're no longer beholden to people building dashboards for us. That's the whole like moment here. It's like, yeah, we probably do need a dashboard. Either DFB needs to build one, or I need to build one, or somebody's got to build one and then host it and make it available and pay all the costs to develop it, right? Or we build this, and what I've been pounding the table on for the past 18 months is we build this natural language layer on top of all of our data, right? So that you don't even need a dashboard. You can just ask the agent, the data agent, who are the top holders of the Bonzo token. There they are. Oh, cool. Oh, that one's a whale. Okay, what are the trades for this whale? Oh, wow. Okay, they trade this. Are they successful in the trade, or do they just lose money? It's all right there.
Well, do it with Lovable. So I've been doing that with Lovable actually. So you can throw an API at Lovable, like basically all the documentation for any API. Lovable dynamically creates like a visual for that too, and it's just on the fly. And you can ask it any questions, and it'll just figure out how to use the API to like create that. It's incredible. It's
Exactly. And the thing is, you know, the mirror nodes, right, where all of our history is saved right now, they're great, but they're not in a way that makes it really easy to process very large amounts of data. And sometimes whenever we want to look at like historical trading, there's going to be a lot of data for a lot of accounts. And so I'm working with teams. It's a little bit too early to mention, but I'm working with multiple teams on better ways to capture that data and make it searchable, right? Make it quickly searchable and referenceable. I'll just throw out the name of one team right now. I love these guys. It's the hgraph.io team, and you know I know they're building an agent because they've had one of the best, if not the best, source of data for the Hedera ecosystem for a very long time. And I saw a demo, and they're building an agent that allows you to like type in and just ask these types of questions. You know, somebody in the comments said the terminals are the future. Absolutely, the terminals are the future, right? It's going to unlock so many use cases and so much information, data, analytics that previously just weren't accessible unless somebody built a dashboard for you, or you're a dev, you know, and you know how to write the scripts to go capture the data yourself. So yeah, it's just so exciting. And even more so, you know, one of the issues that Hedera has faced is, you know, we mentioned this, it's difficult to get assets into Hedera. Like how, if somebody in Solana, right, sees one of our tokens and they want to buy it, right, it has been very difficult for them to get their capital over here, especially in any type of size. Right. I'm working with teams. I just met with them. It's again a little bit too early for me to mention the name, but absolute OGs in the crypto space, and they're building a terminal. They're currently on Solana. They've been really hot recently, and you know, within their terminal, somebody can say swap 10 Solana for Bonzo, and it's going to do the bridging, and it's going to do everything. If they have to swap the Solana for USDC or HBAR and bridge it over and do it, it's just going to do it all for you, right? But now they've swapped Solana for Bonzo, you know, two different chains, one terminal, and that's what gets me excited right there.
We're taking that the complexity away and talk about those terminals, man. I think that's exactly it. Not everybody wants to see the same exact data. They want to see things laid out the way that it benefits them, you know, the most. So you're absolutely right. I mean, that is literally the future. Don't get me wrong. If y'all want to build stuff, please continue to do so. I'd really appreciate it, especially if they're like quote unquote defaults to go along with it. But it's definitely one of those things that gets people really, really excited. All right, post on X. So by the way, guys, we are not able to pull up the comments that are on X. So if you see some of this stuff popping up from the Hedera account here, it's actually directly from one of our other platforms, so y'all can follow along and see what people are saying. So HGraph GQL assistant on GPT has been a lifesaver for building on HBAR. I mean, that is unbelievable. If you guys just think about it, you're essentially able to use the LLMs that, you know, a lot of people are already using for coding and leverage some of these things and, you know, get it to walk you through it and essentially teach you how to play along, which brings me to a fun little question for you. Let me pull this off here real quick. Brady, what's it been like from a builder's point of view? Just because, you know, you were hanging out with Ashe closely and all of a sudden it's like, all right, I'm going to go build something now. I'm going to have a product. What did that look like? Like, how did Bonzo Finance Labs essentially emerge, you know, out of a broader Hedera ecosystem here?
Yeah, it's funny. I think I work with these guys probably just as much now on the builder side as I did when I was like working with them directly. The space is all, you know, open source and very integrated. And so, you know, even to the point of like the chat groups that we were in, a lot of those groups had community members who were builders in them also, in Slack, in Discord, Telegram, etc. And so it weirdly feels like it's close to the same role as, it's not the same role, but it's sort of like the same sort of interaction. It's these same channels that we're using. You when making the decision to depart, I had been at Hedera or these, supporting labs organizations for 5.5 years, and that's like 2 lifetimes in crypto. And so wanted to try something different, but still stay in the ecosystem. And, I had always been, pretty keen on the native Web3 ecosystem side of Hedera. There's definitely sort of a split that exists, one that's more around, enterprise applications, obviously with the governing council and lots of proofs of concept on that, and maybe thinking about what much longer term mainstream adoption looks like. And then there were a number of people that I think had more focus on like, hey, where's the market actually at today? And just, over the next year or 2 years. And a lot of that is just native Web3 applications and protocols and DeFi, as it exists today, but maybe just slightly matured. And, saw a gap in the Hedera ecosystem on the DeFi front. We had exchanges, there was liquidity, liquid staking. When you look at the order of operations in terms of maturing a DeFi ecosystem, when you have all of those pieces, the next thing that usually comes online is lending protocols as an advanced functionality that's next. And from a technical perspective, at the time of my departure, Hedera had all of the technical integrations and pieces in place, like Oracle providers that were needed, or EVM equivalents to a degree of being able to launch integrate and launch an EVM based protocol on the network. And so a lot of it just had to do with sort of the market timing and the maturity of the Hedera DeFi ecosystem and saying, hey, we can go fill that gap. So that's sort of where that came from. And then, yeah, as said before, like working with these guys just as much, sometimes if not more than previously. So it's been great.
I'd love to hear that. I mean, that's a dream, isn't it? When you get to work with somebody and all of a sudden it's like, yeah, I'm going to go work on something else, but wait, we still get to work together. I like working with you so much that we're going to keep this going. That's like, to be honest, like it happens way more often than a lot of people even realize inside of crypto. It's almost like, yeah, we're going to branch off, but yeah, we can't let go of, working with one another and getting things done. Now first thing that, jumped out at me, and obviously to you too, Brady, because you brought it up, was the liquidity statement that Ashe brought up early on. Why have you been considered the liquidity layer of Hedera? Like, what does that mean? And do you have metrics to back that up?
Yeah, so right. So Bonzo's mission is to become the liquidity layer of Hedera, and it's a loaded sort of phrase there. But what we mean by that is, Bonzo Finance at its inception has started with lending and borrowing. And I think one of the unique things with lending and borrowing as a protocol is it has the ability to act as a foundation of liquidity for more advanced protocols to come along and exist on top of it. So, there's certain, index tokens or perpetuals or other types of advanced DeFi protocols that plug into lending protocols in order to provide different functionalities for retail and institutional users. And so when we think about Hedera being a liquidity layer, that lending component, the liquidity that exists for the lending protocol, does act as a foundational layer of liquidity. And then in addition, being the liquidity layer of Hedera opens up the door to a wider variety of protocols and products that Bonzo Finance is able to offer users that are related to liquidity on the network. So, this product that I had mentioned before, vaults, these are automated liquidity management vaults that earn yield for users through different strategies of using the liquidity that users supply. And that liquidity gets routed to other DeFi protocols on the network. So maybe it's Saucer Swap, or maybe it's Bonzo, or HSuite, or HLiquidity, all these other protocols that exist, with more coming online sort of every week. And it becomes an interface where instead of users going straight to the protocol and having to manage that liquidity manually, oftentimes there's a lot of complexity in terms of management of that liquidity. So like if you're using Saucer Swap v2 pools. It's based on Uniswap v3, and you have to set these tick ranges and ensure concentration of that liquidity at certain points, and you have to actively manage it to make sure that it's within the right price range. That can be confusing and intimidating for users. And if you have a vault that's automatically doing that for these different pools that exist, then users can come to the vault and provide liquidity, and it takes care of that management for them. So, again, going back to the idea of Bonzo and these vaults in particular being an interface into the rest of the DeFi ecosystem.
Right. So I guess I got to ask the question, why Hedera, right? I know that I hear the front running thing, the MEV, fair ordering, fees. Like, can you give us the quick rundown of why Bonzo Finance makes sense to be built on Hedera?
Yeah, so, as mentioned before, there's that order of operations that exists for DeFi ecosystems where there was a gap that needed to be filled. And so a lot of it had to do with timing. When you look at maybe some other networks where they had a larger head start, lending protocol maybe already exists, and some of these networks are a bit saturated. I kind of viewed Hedera as sort of maybe what Solana looked like post FTX crash after last cycle, where it has an extreme amount of potential and it was on a strong growth trajectory. And so that's sort of the same view that I have of Hedera. The builder ecosystem is very strong. The community of retail users and institutional adoption that we see is, while initially small, growing very quickly, and everyone is very dedicated and excited. I mean, if you're like new on X and you post something about Hedera and tag Hedera or HBAR, it immediately gets tons of attention. So I think just the potential there was big. The other thing that we found is particularly in DeFi with the Hedera consensus, basically hash graph, it allows for DeFi to operate without MEV or sort of sandwich attacks. And and then also, sorry, so there's no MEV and sandwich attacks because of this fair ordering of transactions with regards to the consensus mechanism, but it's also low and fixed fees on the network. So every time you perform a transaction, that transaction, the same one, is going to cost the same in US dollar denominated value every time. You pay an HBAR for gas, but US dollar denominated value terms, it's the same cost. And when you combine the fair ordering of transactions and this low fixed fee model, both inherent to Hedera, you end up with some benefits in particular for lending protocols that you wouldn't get on any other network. And we wrote a blog post about this actually, in particular around liquidation bots and the liquidation bot ecosystem. So I'll try not to get too deeply technical on this. I know I already have slightly, but with liquidation bots, they ensure health of the protocol and solvency for creditors, people who are lending their liquidity out for others to borrow. And when a position becomes unhealthy, someone's borrowing maybe a volatile asset and the prices change rapidly, liquidation bots need to come in and pay off the loan that user has taken out and resupply the collateral that was, pay off the loan and then take the collateral that was being used for that loan. And liquidation bots, have to do so very efficiently, and it needs to be economically viable. They're incentivized to perform this activity of liquidations because they get to take that collateral at a discount. And on other networks where transaction fees are very volatile, not fixed, they can be very expensive. It's oftentimes that if there are loan amounts that are small, and by small, I mean even like $50, $100, and they go bad, it could cost the liquidation bot you know, upwards of $100 just to perform the transaction to liquidate. And so, you know, if it's not economically viable to perform the liquidation, then you get this accumulation of bad debt over time. And you see that on, you know, on Ethereum with Aave over time, that starts to add up. Because it's so low cost and fixed for liquidation bots to perform these transactions, they can perform liquidations very efficiently, and those liquidations are economically viable even for like tiny positions. So like if the health of a position that's only like a few dollars becomes unhealthy, a liquidation bot can liquidate that and still sort of be in the green. It could still be a profitable transaction for them. And so that prevents bad debt accumulation. And so, you know, when we think about sort of the benefits of the Hedera network for DeFi, one of the ones that really for lending protocols that you see is around this liquidation bot ecosystem. And so that's been one of the biggest things that we've seen in comparison to other networks.
And I gotta say, like, this is a problem across the board with so many different blockchains out there, to be honest. And people have gotten better. I'm not gonna discredit how more efficient you know, some of these contracts have become, but ultimately, and personal story on this one, I have about it's between $5,000 to $7,000 in Ethereum right now, and it's from an old protocol. So when I try to withdraw it, it's gonna cost me about between $17,000 and $22,000 in gas fees to withdraw that. So when you look at it, it's as good as gone, right? Like that's the sort of thing that people don't always take into consideration, but it can really make or break a network depending on how good or bad your protocol is actually handling things. But talking about this whole protocol, like how do protocols like Bonzo Finance, Ashe, kind of fit into this broader strategy of strengthening, you know, the Hedera ecosystem?
Look, you need a economy, right? You need a financial economy. We had Bitcoin, right, that gave us sovereign money, and then ETH came out and basically invented permissionless global financial systems. And Hedera is one of those permissionless global financial systems. And one of the fundamental pillars of finance, other than swap, is borrow and lend, right? A credit market. And so, you know, Web3, like Bonzo, has over collateralized credit markets. And this is what Brady's talking about with being able to identify bad debt, basically when that collateral goes less than loan, people jump in there. And this is just a free market taking care of bad debt, you know, garbage collection. If you're a programmer, you understand garbage collection, and this is permissionless, right? Anybody can build one of these bad debt bots or liquidation bots and go out there and run a service, not out of altruism, right? But out of self-interest of trying to make money by identifying bad debt. And what it does is it grows the strength of our financial system within Hedera. Because, you know, unlike the bad debt in the traditional TradFi ecosystem where the government comes in and just prints a bunch of money and bails, you know, this bad debt out and creates these zombie corporations, we don't have that in crypto. And that's why crypto moves so quickly and why it's the freest, most efficient market on the planet. And it's why crypto invented the 24/7, 365-day trading, you know, asset. We're the fastest, we're the best, we're the cheapest, we're the most accessible, we're permissionless, right? Anybody can use us from a cent to $100 million. It doesn't matter. And so we need this type of stuff to have a healthy financial market. Your ecosystem is only as strong as the health of your financial markets, in my opinion, right? Everything else is great, right? But you got to have a healthy and vibrant financial market. And lending and borrowing, like what Bonzo is doing, is an essential foundational pillar of that. You know, and Brady saw that we didn't have that on Hedera. I mean, he said it multiple times. It was a timing thing, right? First, we needed the EVM. Then we needed swaps, and Saucer Swap jumped in to do that, and others as well, right? But then it was time for lending, borrowing, and so here you are.
I think you made a really good point.
All right.
at the beginning of what you just said too. You mentioned that it's an economy, and I feel like that is the best way to be thinking about these networks. They're nation states and economies within those nation states. So you have a national currency within the nation state. So HBAR is Hedera's national currency. You have government. So for Hedera in particular, you could almost view the governing council as like senators, which offer governance for the nation state. And you have businesses that exist within that economy that want to set up shop and make money as a business, as a protocol. And developers and businesses want to set up shop in thriving economies because that's where they can generate the most money. It has this huge flywheel effect. And then to your point too on liquidations, it also supports other protocols in the ecosystem. So when a liquidation takes place and liquidation bot, takes the collateral of an unhealthy loan, they end up then taking that collateral and oftentimes swapping it for maybe a stable coin or another asset on the DEX of the network. So liquidation isn't just isolated to Bonzo. It's now the user has these funds and they want to go to the DEX on the network and support increasing the volume of the DEX by performing swaps. So there's this definitely like cyclical flywheel effect that's taking place for sure.
Now, I don't want to put you on the spot, Ashe, but there is a thing kind of going around with you and Jake. I think it's I don't know where you guys came up with this name, but I believe it's they're hustlers. Is that right?
That's right. Hedera hustlers. You got to hustle.
All right, you got to tell people about that one because you guys have been doing such a great job. What is it all about? And I'm going to try to find one of the thumbnails here so that people can see what I'm talking about as well.
Yeah. I mean, hustlers stay locked in, right? And that's what we need. We need hustlers, people in the trenches, people keeping up with everything, not only across the Hedera ecosystem, but what's going on in other ecosystems, right? Because we can learn from others. And so the Hedera hustlers, I didn't come up with a name, got to give that to Jay Koo, my co-host on Hashgraph Hustlers. But it started with Jake doing this just kind of on his own, vibe coding and just running. He's on the DevRel team over at Hashgraph, and I saw it, and him and I just worked so well together that we wanted to do something together. And now he's the engineering lead for the AI, the agent kit, right? The Hedera agent kit. And so the idea is that we wanted to have a live stream vibe coding sessions so that people can see and learn how to build on Hedera using vibe coding. And it's really successful. Now he's out in Asia for a while and the time zones are a little bit difficult for us. So, we're trying to nail down a regular time, but it's one of, if not our most popular piece of content that Hedera releases. And it's all about the vibes. And we successfully built something at the end of it. One time we used AI to vibe code like a flying game, a plane that flies through rings. If you recall, back in the day, it was like Pilot Wings type game, and we added points to it. And
You remember Pilot Wings? You just won
please.
so many brownie points with me, man. All right, N64, that's where it's at. I'm 100% with you.
And actually, I used to play it on the Super Nintendo, but we built that.
That's
It
where
took
it started. Yeah.
one vibe coding session, and you could put tokens to it, you could put NFTs to it. We just wanted to help people see that the barriers of building are being broken down, and start using Hedera in different ways to integrate into these small vibe coding tools, games, whatever you want. Now it's pivoted just a little bit. We just had Brady, the Bonzo CTO on, and we built a plugin. We built a plugin for the Hedera agent kit, And just right there live, on the show within like an hour and a half or 2 hours or something, just trying to show people not only how easy it is to build a plugin for the agent kit. Of course, we want everybody to do that. We're still waiting on that PR over from Bonzo team to get all their functionality in for the agent kit. But we want, if you're building a product, Saucer Swap or whoever, Meme Job, anybody that's building on Hedera, and you're building something that, especially if it has users, right? We welcome you to build a plugin for the Hedera agent kit. Just think about the Hedera agent kit like this, right? Let's assume that Elon and Sam Altman and all these guys are right, that there's going to be millions of agents online within the coming 5 years. Well, a lot of those agents are going to be interested and be built to interact with the digital economy. Well, the best digital economy, as we know, is Web3, right? And so if there's going to be these agents and they're going to be integrating with the digital economy, we want to build as robust and simple of an ecosystem for them to plug into, so that Hedera is an obvious choice, right, to have your agent interact with the digital economy of Hedera. That is the North Star of the agent kit, all right? The more functionality that we can support, Bonzo borrow lend or query, what yields are, or all sorts of, or swap using Saucer Swap or H Suite or any of the swap tools, right? Protocols, or create a new meme coin on Meme Job. We want to be able to do that in natural language so that any agent can come over and they don't have to like figure out how to program or write some JavaScript code and do this. They can just boom, use the agent kit and it's all right there for them. So we really need these plugins coming in. And if you need some assistance, you got questions, contact me. We can chat about this. But the stronger our agent kit, the stronger the Hedera ecosystem is to prepare in preparation for this new type of user, which is the agent user, the AI user. And so I don't know if I answered the question or if I just answered the question that I wanted to answer, but this is it. We need to pivot and start really supporting, this new economy, because I think it's going to come a lot faster than what people think. And so, yeah.
I have to agree with you. It's definitely moving at a much faster pace than most people realize. And I do want to make sure that I do this little thing right here and share with everybody what this looks like. So if this comes across your feed, click on it, okay? If these two faces, if you ever see, Jake and Ashe, this is what you want to click on every time, and make sure you're listening to it, because these guys are doing a phenomenal job when it comes to highlighting, not only what can be built on Hedera, but how to do it and actually do it in it live, which is really, really cool. And
We
I
take
like to say that,
questions.
if you know what you're doing,
Yeah,
that
we take
interaction is
questions
everything. And if
during
you
the
know what you're
stream.
doing,
It's
you're
all
willing to do it
interactive.
live.
Yeah.
I love that. I love
Well,
that. So yeah,
and
for all the guys that are
we make
commenting and actually
mistakes.
engaging,
We make
you
plenty
make
of mistakes
mistakes.
on the
Wait a
call.
minute.
Yeah, you're gonna. We'll even use different
I didn't
AI
know there were going to be
models.
mistakes.
I think we may have a
All
little
right.
bit of
So
delay here, but it's really good to see us like switching between AI models. We give you we do a good job, if I may, of creating the project plan before we start coding, right? And so we help show how we break down, like, we come with an idea in mind, then we use AI to break down the requirements and the various steps of the project plan, and then we show you how to vibe code using, maybe we'll try Grok 4, maybe we'll do GPT-5, maybe we'll do a whole bunch of other Claude, to see which one works the best. But we're iterating through that project plan as we go. So it's very structured, and it is still vibe coding, right? Because we try not to jump into the code and make any changes ourselves, but it's more of a structured vibe coding based on just our own experience on how to successfully build, using vibe coding. So yeah, I highly recommend you guys, anyone in the audience tune in, even if you're not technical, because the technical requirements of building is just getting obliterated right now, where anybody is going to be able to build, before long. And I think Hashgraph also is a good bridge to show that possibility.
I love that. That's so stinking cool that you guys do it live and actually show people the struggles as well. Because a lot of times it's like, let me show you a nice, pretty project and how this works. But when you actually get to see people go through it and sometimes struggle with things that, the actual builders out there might be struggling with themselves, it makes a huge, huge difference. All right, I want to try to get these last 15 minutes that we have here to look ahead at what's next, what's actually getting built, what we can expect down the line. Because a lot of people, not only in the comments, but personally as well, people that I'm connected with that love the Hedera ecosystem, they want to know what's coming. They want to know what to expect. I think the when Hedera $1 is always the fun thing that I see everywhere. But Brady, let me start with you. When it comes to Bonzo, can you give us a little bit of insight into Bonzo vaults and what that means for users, devs, and how this can actually push DeFi innovation forward inside of the Hedera ecosystem?
Yeah, so for Bonzo vaults, I think this is it's not something that is necessarily like particularly new for Web3 ecosystems, but it is something that is an advancement and maturation for the Hedera DeFi ecosystem, in the sense that it's opening up the door to more retail and institutional users in the network with types of functionalities that are going to make it easier for them to be able to participate. So as mentioned before, it can be complex, confusing, require oftentimes a significant amount of education to participate in supplying liquidity into various protocols, or running strategies in DeFi that maybe as a retail user, generally you're not familiar with. There's institutions in Web3 that are running these institutional strategies across DeFi protocols in the space on Hedera and on all other networks. But oftentimes they can be pretty complex. And what vaults do is opens up the door to making those strategies and these automations really easy and available to the rest of the ecosystem and to retail users. So I think the hope that I see with Bonzo vaults would be that we get more participation in DeFi because of that ease of use factor, and because again, Ashe mentioned this, there's always sort of a profit motive or a financial motive in the activities that are being done in these economies, in these networks. And so maximizing the ability to earn yield from these different strategies for users as well. So my hope is we end up seeing a lot of liquidity that's maybe sidelined right now in wallets or on centralized exchanges being brought into the ecosystem in an ecosystem wallet, and being able to be supplied and effectively utilized across DeFi. And that growth is just going to make the economy more efficient, markets more efficient, and create greater participation.
Love it. Ashe, let me go to you real quick, and I'll make this one quick because I definitely want to get through all the questions that people have been sending in. What initiatives are right around the corner, let's say? What can people expect the community at large to be excited about over the next coming months?
Hey, we've got a ton of projects coming online in the next couple months. I can mention one in particular here that I'm really excited about. There's not any prediction markets are all the rage right now, and Hedera does not have a prediction market, right? And so I've been working with a team, and they're getting very close to going live, which is they basically built a communication layer for Hedera users to be able to access Poly Market. Again, taking care of all the bridging and all the USDC swapping and everything. Basically, it's an AI agent that allows people Hedera users using Telegram, the Hedera wallet, to query prediction markets over on Polygon, and place bets using their Hedera tokens. So using Hedera USDC. And so if you can't have a great prediction market, natively, the best next thing is give access to your user base to access the best prediction market in the world. And that's what we got going on right now. And again, don't want to name drop or anything, but keep your eyes peeled. Our marketing team is working on overdrive right now. We've got a whole bunch of stuff coming out. I will mention, I've been working with the Thrive team. in season 2, and they continue to make posts about the various teams that are getting funded through the Thrive protocol initiative that we have with them. And they just made one a couple minutes ago, and we're working really hard to source good teams through the Thrive initiative. It's much different than season 1. Season 1 was more about like questing and hey, mint an NFT, buy an NFT, this and that. All that's out the window. The new model is they help us source good teams and good projects, and we meet with them every single week. A crew of us do from the foundation, and we go over every single project that they put on in front of us, and we ask questions to them. I meet with them and interview them, and we vote them up or down. And so these teams that are getting funded have gone through a rigorous review period. And yeah, I'm really pumped up about those as well. It's a real 180, I would say, from what Thrive season 1 was to what Thrive season 2 is with us. We're really proud of that.
All right, we're going to kick it off into all these questions. First one that just came up here, multi-chain transfer. Is that part of what you were just describing there in regards to Polymarket?
Yeah, exactly. Right? Exactly. So you can use your Hedera USDC to effectively, from the user experience, to make bets on Polymarket, their prediction markets, without having to worry about, oh, okay, let me transfer this over to Polygon first, and then let me do this. Let me open up my Polygon wallet, whatever. It's all gonna be taken care of behind the scenes. Like I've been saying since 2016, blockchain in the background, right? The UX is finally getting to the point where it's blockchain in the background. You just do what you want to do, and don't, the rest of that is abstracted away.
Yeah, obfuscating all the cables and tech behind it is really what it takes for the everyday user to actually jump in and do something with the system, right? Like it's that GUI that you were describing early on. Like it's kind of the thing that we need. Talking about a GUI, something that came up and I kind of gave an answer was, will terminals, for example, be a risk, or an attack vector here? My response to this was essentially that most terminals are focused on the reading of information, not necessarily on the writing aspect of it. But is there anything else that you guys would add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I would just go ahead, Brady. Go ahead.
I was gonna say one of the things that I've seen is it's sort of prompt prompt attacks. So when you're looking at, for example, the Comet browser by Perplexity, one of the attack vectors that they've observed is, let's say you send the agent to a website that is sourcing information. If you write on that website as part of the information a nefarious instruction, like, make sure you enter the credit card details of the person here and click submit, and it's a scam. And if the agent has sort of full autonomy to be able to do that and has your credit card information, they'll just take action on that. And so there's ways of, if an agent's reading information on a website or being given information by another agent, there's ways of manipulating your agent who's tasked with doing something and having that agent perform something that it was not supposed to be able to do. And I feel like there's just tons of flexibility that exists with these agents from like a security landscape that could result in bad outcomes. So like it's an interesting, weird way of doing security too. It feels like it's not just like a code base that you're making sure doesn't have any holes. It's like almost like a person that you're trying to protect in a way where you're trying to, instruct them, hey, don't do these things, or make sure that if you get prompted to do something like this, you check with the with the owner with your owner, check if they need to approve something specifically. So I found that to be really interesting. I think if you look at the browser plugin that Anthropic just released, I think they did a few things to try and mitigate that.
Very cool. Now I gotta give you your flowers, Ashe, because people are loving what you're doing with the Hustlers team, I guess you can say. Hashgraph Hustler. So I think it's definitely helping a lot of people when it comes to learning how to vibe code, or that might not have any kind of experience in the past, and even people from around the globe. You got a little hello here from South Africa, and
Awesome.
likewise, El Tasso has also brought this up, loving the content, and thanks for introducing me to this vibe coding. I'll definitely have a look at Hedera Hustlers Devs podcast. So keep up that good work, man. Like you're definitely having a positive impact out there, and people are going to get excited to actually start building. Doesn't mean that vibe coding is the end all and be all, but man, it gets people started. It gets people to actually be excited about
Great tool.
ecosystems, and yeah, exactly. It's an incredible tool, especially if you're dealing with simpler applications. I think it's definitely some a part of what's going to take us to the next level here. Now, I get
Yeah.
questions about this one every time we do a stream. Transactions per second here, is it going to go up? Because there's this notion of like the more transactions you have, the more successful a network is, which I completely disagree with. But do you think that AI agents will increase the TPS?
Yeah, so I'll answer that one quickly, and then I'll answer the security one as well. I mean, the more users you have on a network, then the higher probability that they'll be executing transactions on your network, right? And so I think it's safe to say that greater than zero AI agents that have access to Hedera will do more transactions than zero AI agents on Hedera, right? And so if we argue from first principles, then of course, the more users or the more agents you have, then the more economic activity, aka transactions, that you're going to have on your network. But I don't think that TPS is a very good metric. And I know I might get in trouble for saying this because we've targeted that metric in the past, both at the Hashgraph and the foundation. But you- we should really be looking at economic value of transactions or the GDP. I just saw Solana came out with a report on their top 10 dApps revenue earnings. That's a much better sign of health than transactions per second. Just think about this in normal people terms. Is it the number of transactions in at your local, widget shop that matters, or is it the GDP or the revenue that is being generated by that widget shop or by that candy store or gas station or whatever, right? Transactions per second is just not that interesting and not a good KPI to track. It's easily gained and it may not have much economic value. So I don't really think in those terms anymore. But thinking back to the security question, I want to come back to this because it's very important. As the original, product owner of the the Hedera agent kit, right? I, I would be amiss not to comment on the security aspect. Now, there's two ways that these terminals are built. One is, I'm hesitant to call it custodial because none of them are built in a way, at least the ones that I'm funding and the ones that I'm working with, none of them are in a way where your key is stored on some remote server somewhere that they can manage, right? Even in the ones that don't require you to log in with your wallet, your key is going to be stored client side on your side, right? Most of the time, or you're going to have some secret that is required to unlock your key over on some HSM or some key store over on Amazon AWS or something like that. So this is the first thing to focus on is how if the human in the loop is not required, meaning that I don't have to sign in with my Hashpack or MetaMask or Kabila wallet or whatever and sign the transaction, where is my key being stored, right? The other thing is if it is human in the loop, then it's going to pop up. You're going to log in with Wallet Connect or log in with something, and it's going to pop up and have you confirm that transaction, just like you were going to any DApp, right? Just like you were going to Salsa Swap, just like you were going to Bonzo. It's going to pop up. It's going to be like, hey, you're about to sign a transaction that's going to do these things, right? Confirm this. The same thing with human in the loop type of terminals. We have human in the loop terminals being built right now, ready to come online within the next couple of months. Okay, that helps with the user. That helps with the security, feeling because you're reviewing everything. but it degrades the user experience a bit, just a bit, right? So there are also terminals that are going to have key management, right? A sharded approach to key management that are going to be able to execute transactions for you without having to pop up the signer, right? Your wallet. Now, a lot of the times what happens, and to try to abate hallucinations, I know I'm going on here, but this is really, really important for users, right? Because I don't want anybody to get screwed over here. When building the agent kit, it's not like these agents can just do anything, right? This LLM can just do anything on chain. The architecture, and I'm getting a little bit nerdy, right? Get nerdy with me. Anybody knows Al Yankovic, but you know, they'll have functions that they call, and the LLM is really just used to reason. It's really just used to identify the user's intention and reason which function, discrete function, it should call, no, excuse me, not discrete, deterministic function that should call in the background. This is how the agent kit is built. Maybe there's a swap function, maybe there's a transfer function, maybe there's an airdrop function. Those are the functions that can get called and get executed for you for your account, right? It won't be able just to invent some other function to call, right? It reasons what the user wants to do, identifies the correct function to do it, and once it identifies that function, the rest of it's just like standard code. It's going to build that transaction using that function and then execute that function for you. So there are quite a few safeguards that have been put into place, especially when people use the agent kit. Of course, nothing is perfect, but I do think it's important to realize that these LLMs can't just, do something crazy and invent this whole function to call. It's the architecture is just different than that. So there are safeguards.
All right, I got to get back to this main big old question that we got at the very beginning from Say. And Say did give us a lot of insight. Like they are really curious about the future of HBAR because they got exposed to it through Binance of all places. And they're here, they're sticking around, they got questions. So Hedera offers clear advantages such as, a lower carbon footprint, higher TPS, and a POS consensus that's more energy efficient compared to Bitcoin or Ethereum. Yet it hasn't seemed to seen broad adoption in the crypto community. What are the key factors holding it back? Market perception, ecosystem maturity, decentralized concerns. Additionally, as an organizations increasingly adopt LLMs, would you lean towards building a proprietary model tailored to your ecosystem or leverage where we at? Let me see, because I think it keeps going. Leverage and open source models. I might have to go back to actually LinkedIn to see if there is more to that question. But you guys can start with that because that was pretty loaded.
Yeah, I mean, I can take it at first because I've got products being, teams being building towards this. Couple things there. If you don't mind, just leave that comment up there. I'll reference it. So what has held Hedera back? I think it was.
You got it.
Yeah, thank you. What has held back broader adoption? I At first it was the market perception around centralization, but I don't think that that's really a concern anymore. We've grown the governing council. I think this model, Lehman will even tell you this. The governing council of Hedera was modeled after the governing council of Visa. So if you a little history, for you, go check out how Visa was founded as a consortium, and Hedera was founded in that same type of consortium. So maybe the strictest of decentralizationists were concerned originally about Hedera, but as crypto and as blockchain expands into the enterprise space, which I mean we're undoubtedly seeing that this year, right? Institutional enterprise adoption is too obvious to ignore anymore. These enterprises and these people are going to be much more okay with the level of decentralization that Hedera offers because it's something that they understand and it's something they can reference with like Visa, for example. So that concern has been greatly reduced, I would say. The other part is, ecosystem maturity. Hedera didn't have an EVM until 2022, right? Where that was after the most recent bull market. And so without that type of EVM, since the AppNet did not receive the type of adoption that we were hoping it would, it was the EVM and it was Solidity. Hedera was on its back heels just a little bit in terms of attracting builders and building that ecosystem, building that digital financial ecosystem, like Brady and I've been talking about, the health of an ecosystem is its economy. We were a bit late to the party in building that economy, but now we have a fast and efficient and low cost EVM that can compete against any other EVM. We've reduced the barriers, a lot of it thanks to the Hashgraph engineering team and product teams over there. We've got a great EVM. And so I think that it's the majority of the issues that prevented us from getting that type of adoption have been resolved. And now it's continuing to build, lower the barriers to entry like we're doing with these AI tools. And that's what I'll comment on lastly here. We've got a few different projects working towards fine-tuning LLMs specific for Hedera, fine-tuning it on Hedera's data, fine-tuning it on Hedera's open source repositories. So, check out gib.chat. This is a community project that they keep a repository of all of the projects on Hedera. So, I like to think of gib.chat as one of, if not the front page, homepage for the Hedera ecosystem. Go and ask any question. Somebody new to Hedera, what is the lending borrower? Maybe people don't know about Bonzo, right? But you go, what is the lending borrower of Hedera? Boom, it's going to say Bonzo. What is the most popular swap? It's going to say Saucer Swap. It's going to help you with wallets and stuff like that. So, we're absolutely crushing barriers to entry here, both from an information and from a developer perspective. So yeah, the community just needs to keep doing what they're doing. It's one of the most vocal and one of the most energized communities I've ever seen. I've been in crypto since 2013, and so that's saying a lot.
I agree with what Ashe is saying. There's a number of pieces that I think were not in place before that now that they are, it opens up the door. So Hedera's had sort of a late start maybe in terms of being able to actually grow and get the adoption of developers and retail users, but it's on a tear now and all of those pieces are in place. There's a large degree of EVM equivalence now, the ability to, even for us, we took Aave and we were able to adapt it to Hedera and bring it online. And for the most part, that was pretty seamless experience. I do think also market timing is incredibly important, especially in emerging technology and for startups. Arguably, Hedera is a startup. All of these networks are startups. They need to be treated like startups, not like large enterprise companies. And when you think about market timing, you're anticipating how fast the market's going to evolve, how fast mainstream adoption is going to take place, how fast these large enterprise companies maybe are going to actually adopt this technology and put it into like real world usage rather than proofs of concept. And I think initially the belief on where we are in terms of timing was a little bit too early. We, the way emerging tech evolves is it usually starts with innovators and startups and core groups of people that are using these new technologies to solve like smaller problems. And that's how it evolves. You need to be part of that process, I think, in order to be relevant long-term and be part of the maturation and be part of like throwing a million things against the wall to see what things actually stick and which ones the industry wants to mature and evolve. And I think Hedera sort of anticipated enterprise adoption and mainstream adoption to be a lot sooner than it actually is taking place.
Yeah, and a lot of us did, right? A lot of us did. A lot of us. I mean, I thought DeFi was ready to go mainstream in 2018, right?
Totally. Well, and then there's benefits of it. So one of the benefits that I've seen is, in treating it like that mainstream enterprise adoption is going to take place maybe sooner than what the reality is. What ended up happening is you have an insane amount of development of the network and of its capabilities being focused around like hardening it to ensure that it is going to be, you could use the cliche of like enterprise grade, but it is enterprise grade. And so the benefit of that is like now that we kind of have to go back and be like, okay, yeah, let's actually meet the market where it exists and do it right. The benefit is we all get to build on infrastructure and with tools that are incredibly robust. And we've
It's
seen.
like we ate glass for years waiting for the market narrative to catch up with our positioning, right? We
Yeah.
chewed glass for years and years, and now that enterprise and institutional is really starting to catch a real adoption cycle. Look at where we're at. Look at where Hedera's at. Look at our governing council, right? Look at where we've been positioning ourselves since it wasn't cool, right? And now it's cool. It's not like, oh, Hedera's cool all of a sudden. No, like we've been building this narrative and been building in this space and getting the connections and growing the governing council and doing all this for years and years and years. And we're really, really well positioned now for the coming, the coming years. And it's not by happenstance. And it was easy to think that we just happen to like get it right or something now that it's like the market's turning in our favor. I mean, including us being based in the United States, right? It was not a friendly jurisdiction for a very long time to be in the United States. It was actually quite the risk. And now it's a very friendly jurisdiction. I'm no attorney and whatever, I'm an engineer, right? But like just being US based, I think again, Lehman and Mance created us as a US based company, at least, the original Hedera. Of course, we're decentralized and stuff, right? But things are turning in our favor. It's taken a little bit longer than we would have hoped or expected, but such is emerging tech, right, Brady?
100%. Yeah. Yeah. And that US, I was going to add that also. You took the words out of my mouth. Being US based, this cycle for sure has been of great value, I think, just given
Certainly.
the current administration and the direction that they're going in.
Yeah. Of all the years that fade Hedera, this is not it.
Yeah.
Fade at your own risk.
I'm right there with
Maybe
you guys.
Maybe I'll just leave it there. Fade at your own risk.
That's a great way to put it. And that's the best financial advice. Like, go ahead, do what you will, but man, just don't come back crying later on. Like, make your decisions, have conviction.
Non-financial advice, of course. Fade Hedera as a DLT and as a technology at your own risk, because we're becoming, our position is strengthening.
Yeah, and
that person,
go ahead, Brady.
The person in that question mentioned building a proprietary model tailored to the ecosystem or leveraging open source models and data sets. The continuation of it is data sets from Hugging Face. And one of the things that I wanted to cite just to close out that question was there are open source models in Hugging Face that we're using Hedera. So in particular here, Equity Labs is one of these organizations that's bringing like an integrity framework to training model data using the Hedera network to basically validate that data. And they released a Hugging Face model called Climate GPT. And then this integration that they did works with Hugging Face as well. I'll actually drop I don't know if you can share
put the link in there.
The link here. Yeah.
All right, I'm going to throw this link up in a few different platforms so y'all can actually follow along. If you want to click through, please feel free to do so, because it is definitely one of those things that will get you a little bit further down the Hedera ecosystem. A few other questions here. I want to make sure I hit some of the top ones.
Just real quick, guys, I do have to drop. Yeah, I appreciate it. Had a ton of fun, Brady. Always love to hang out with you. Action. Good to see you for the first time. I think this is my first time on the Genzio stream. If you've got any questions, follow me at Ashe_Oro on X/Twitter. And if you're building something really, really awesome, hit us up, hit me up. You can find me on Twitter, same. Email address is the same at hbar.fund, and go on over and send in an application. Especially if you're in the AI space, send an application in and let's take a look at it. Oh, that's Pilot Wings. I hear that. I could name that tune in like 3 notes for Pilot Wings.
I want to make sure I threw that in there before you left.
I could still do the jetpack thing like it was my job. Don't even play. All right, guys. I'll see you later.
Take care, man.
Thanks, brother. And then there were 2.
And number 2.
Brady, you got to. I'm just going to give it to you to kind of give us the insight of how people can get involved with Bonzo, because I want to make sure they know exactly what it is that they are able to do on that platform. Because we talk about liquidity, talk about vault, talk about so many different things. But if somebody, were to kind of, well, actually, do it this way: if you were to come across somebody in an elevator, how would you tell them what Bonzo is all about?
Yeah, so getting involved, I think it depends on where you're coming from, or like, I guess in marketing terms, like your persona. So if you're a retail user, going and checking out the Bonzo website, so bonzo.finance, or the application itself, app.bonzo.finance. Not financial advice in any way. There's a lot of risks and uncertainties with regards to utilization of DeFi. Don't invest more than you can use. Don't play with more than you're willing to lose. But being able to sort of check out and even use the testnet. So there's a testnet functionality that you can jump into just to run test transactions. And exploring some of the functionalities that are available as sort of a retail user from a lending and borrowing perspective. The documentation has a really good getting started guide. So docs.bonzo.finance. And then as a developer, we talked about things like liquidation bots. There's a number of opportunities for developers to build integrations within the Bonzo Finance ecosystem. Again, in the docs, there's a liquidation bot section. You can learn how to build a liquidation bot. There's a functionality called flash loans that oftentimes it's used for arbitrage opportunities between various decentralized exchanges. There is documentation on how to use that as well if you're a developer. And then there's an API, a data API for Bonzo Finance. Again, in the documentation in the developer resources section, all of the data that's available in Bonzo Finance, the positions in the protocol, the APYs, the amounts of funds that are being supplied and borrowed. It's very extensive. And so there are things that you could do with that support the ecosystem through the development of various tools. Maybe it's, we've heard about folks that were thinking about building like a notification bot. So basically it uses the data API, and a user can sign up for this notification bot service, and basically it notifies you if your position becomes unhealthy, or there's a liquidation, or a number of different things. So there's opportunities there with access to the data API. And then I'd say elevator pitch for Bonzo is lending and borrowing functionality within the Hedera ecosystem for HBAR, HBARX, and USDC, as well as a number of ecosystem assets. And then it is the liquidity layer of Hedera. We've got vaults coming online at the end of September, early October. So definitely check that out when they go live. And I'd say just explore and play around. I mean, not just with Bonzo, but just in general, any kind of new DeFi protocol that's available. There's always new functionalities that are out there. My best advice for anybody who is interested in Web3 is like, go play with these tools and learn about them through playing. And that's any emerging technology. That's AI also. Definitely play with these tools and learn about them. They're fun. So that's it. That's my advice.
I love that. And it's exactly what we were talking about here when it comes to vibe coding and everything else that has been going on. It's get your hands in there, get your hands dirty, give it a try. Brady, you are awesome. And something that I don't always give enough credit to are the two incredible gentlemen that are sitting in the background, Firm and Luis. You guys are legends. Thank you so much for the support in the background, taking care of comments and everything that goes on. Unsung heroes for sure. You guys did not get the recognition you deserve for all the work that you do in the back end. So thank you for all your support back there. And to everybody listening, guys, make sure you subscribe to not only the the Hedera account here, but I also dropped the handles for both Ashe and Brady, so you guys can see what these guys are up to. They always have some really cool and innovative updates on what's going on in the space, which is really, really awesome. So please make sure you're checking them out. Make sure you're giving them a follow. And I can't wait to do this again. We're actually going to do this a little bit sooner since last month's took a little bit longer. We had to postpone. Glad you're feeling better, Brady. We're going to be doing another one of these shortly, I believe in less than 2 weeks. So keep your eyes peeled. And obviously, until then, you can definitely check out Jake and Ashe and what they're doing with the Hashgraph Hustlers. Great little thing they're doing over there. But that's it. Thank you all so much. It's been a phenomenal stream, and I can't wait to do this one again. Brady, appreciate you as always.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
The need for a more interconnected world is fueling new decentralized technologies and new ways of doing business. Hedera stands at the forefront of distributed ledgers, where every interaction is not only trusted, but fast, efficient, and secure. While traditional blockchains struggle with speed and fees, Hedera's network settles transactions in under 3 seconds for a fraction of a penny. And the proof is in the numbers. Hedera is uniquely governed by a council of the world's leading institutions, ensuring transparency, trust, and decentralization. It's no wonder Hedera is the leading choice for enterprise and DeFi use cases. Everything from real-world asset tokenization to AI data integrity. Discover the only decentralized network with the governance, scalability, and security to power the new digital economy. What future will you build?